Good evening. Welcome to Diva Talk Radio, Blog Talk Radio show. I'm going to do this Mother's Day excerpt on why I believe it's okay to divorce and why I am pro divorce for several reasons, and why I am pro offboarding from bad relationships and not going into another relationship permanently. Being that women who are successful have a harder time finding a good mate, or a mate that is conducive to their mental health, their emotional health, their sanity, and their professional endeavors. I do not recommend a lot of people to stay in a marriage that's loveless, for one that's narcissistic ridden, or a marriage that is abusive or emotionally abusive or detrimental to your mental health. I do not recommend any woman stay in a marriage that she's not happy in. I don't recommend a woman stay in a relationship long term that is not conducive to her mental health, emotional health, professional dreams, goals, aspirations. I am very much so very pro divorce and pro staying single and being able to achieve your dreams and goals without a mate or someone in your life, because dealing with narcissistic sociopaths, or people who are habitual emotional abusers, tormentors, or like to traumatize or abuse emotionally, those are the things that a narcissistic sociopath, red flag type of person will do. And speaking from experience, this is why I am pro divorce and pro not getting married and not keen on ever getting in a relationship. I have literally dealt with years and years of a provoking, gaslighting, abusive, coercive control, economically abused, financially abused, inclined, abusive, emotional tormentor, a gaslighter, a provoker, an immature, childish man who cannot seem to understand what the word no means, boundaries means, or leave me alone means. And the reason why I absolutely urge anybody to offboard from someone like that is because those are red flags. Those are clear indicators of a very emotionally violent, very abusive, very entitled to abuse, a very emotionally butthurt, emotionally, habitually provoking, childish, immature, low-function type of man who is a epic failure to thrive. Now, versus where there are women in relationships, but I don't date women. I'm not attracted to them in any way, shape, or form. So therefore, I'm isolating it to men because I only date men. And being as such, when you've dealt with 10 years of a decade of habitual narcissism, habitual provoking, habitual bullying, habitual harassment, emotional abuse, emotional torment, levels of emotional violence, and levels of elicited habitual enablement by people who are narcs by proxy, or levels and depths of sociopaths themselves, undiagnosed, or narcopaths themselves, or some of them are just toxic individuals who absolutely enjoy the levels and depths of torture that a narcissist or a sociopath or an obsessed, fatal attraction, fatal vows, fatally obsessed person will elicit on the person who's the object, or what I consider a target of their affection. And to me, obsession, fatality waiting to happen, or every tier of 7 indicators for a red flag of a potential homicide. Not only do I find a person like that disgusting, not only is it a complete turnoff, but years and years of that can do a lot of damage to someone. And there's a level and depth of where I tell someone, before you get into a relationship that you can't get out of, or you can't get away from this person, or you feel a level of animosity, hostility, and you feel a level of that when you go to law enforcement, or you go to family members, or you go to the harem of people who are mutual friends of yours, and he continues to elicit the levels of hostility and response out of you, and you end up being smear campaigned by all of the cronies or the in-betweeners or the enablers, there's a level and depth of where you should offboard from that person no matter what it takes to do so. The most dangerous time out of offboarding from something like that is actually post-relationship, when you've broken up, where you're clearly done with the relationship, where that person is clearly obsessed and will not stop. And not only is their narcissism a malignant level, it's a level of toxic and a level of psychosis, neuroticism, and psychotic behavior that is acceptable. Not only is it a level and depth of torture, not only is it a level and depth of habitual abuse, but it is enabled by a lot of people who seem to think that it's okay to allow someone to sabotage or continue to elicit levels of destructive behaviors, and they think it's funny because most people are so immature and they're not capable of being an adult themselves that they have inability to grow up or check the person who's doing it, because a lot of people who are like that are just like the person who's doing it. Not only do they like to target the victim, not only do they like to elicit levels of upset, not only do they like to continue to abuse by proxy, because sometimes they elicit levels of animosity and hostility and jealousy towards you. And not only are narcissists good liars, not only are they habitual emotional abusers, not only do they like to gaslight, not only do they like to recruit other people to triangulate and reduce the level of their damage, but they're toxic, they're hateful, they're miserable, they're just nasty. They will go and sit there and elicit levels of ID theft. They will sit there and elicit levels of emotional response by accessing your devices. They will sit there and go and do keyloggers. They will put malware on your device. They will even track you in your cars with GPS underneath the bottom of the car. Not only are they habitual, toxic, immature, childish people, they are not capable of ever having remorse for any of their sociopathy. They're never capable of realizing what kind of damage and that they're the reason for you leaving the relationship. They can never fathom that they are the reason why you hate them. They can never fathom that they're the reason why you cannot love them. They can never fathom that they are the reason why the relationship is in the toilet and you don't ever want it back and you never want them back. And then what makes it even worse is that they have a level and depth of their family members who don't believe that they're like that, because they never display that to their family members. Their family members are equally just as undiagnosed and toxic as they are. And that is where you have to divorce the whole entire family. That is where you have to absolutely no contact the entire family. That is where you have to gray rock a narcissist and a sociopath and a malignant narcissist, and especially a red flag dangerous narcissist, kind of like what I've been dealing with for the last 10 years. And not only is it the narcissist will try to cause you a level of snap, not only will they sit there and provoke and gaslight, not only will they push you to a level of mental, emotional breakdown and torment, not only will they provoke and gaslight, not only will they abuse you, not only will they physically abuse you, they will mentally torture you. They will psychologically commit levels and depths of devilment and psychotic behaviors and levels of psychological torment to the point that they will actually have you wish to God that either they die or you die. And at the point that I'm at in my life, I'm not planning on dying. I'm not suicidal. I don't have suicidal ideation or tendencies, but there are times that I've actually prayed that he would die. There's times that I prayed that he and his whole family would be taken out because he's such a disgusting, enabled prick. And the worst part about it, with dealing with someone like that, I don't have any love for this man. I don't want him. I don't want to be in a relationship with him. I would never forgive him for what he's done. I would never forgive his family. I would never even reasonably listen to anything that he has to say, because he's a danger to me. He's become a 5250 and a 5150 to me. And not only that, the level and depths of his family that enable him and cheer him on in his out of order, disgusting, immature, childish behavior. Not only that, when I talk about divorce, I'm talking about even divorcing family. If you have family that you went to and you've told them about a narcissistic sociopath and they continue to enable it because they either benefit from that narcissist or sociopath or malignant narcissist, they're just as bad as the malignant narcissist. Not only are they enablers, but they are not protecting. They're failing to protect. And not only that, you have to divorce your family and his family. Then you have to divorce him as well. And that is one of those things that you do when you're finally tired of a man and you're tired of his abuse. And then vice versa, if a man is with a woman and she's doing that. Luckily, I'm not that type of person. I am an empath inclined, and I had to look up what narcissism is. And when I had to look up what a narcissist is, and I had to look what a malignant narcissist is, and I realized what I was going through, it was a level of upset and ire that I have and hostility that I have towards him, and he could never apologize for it. He would never be able to explain his narcissism, his sociopathy, the danger that he put me in, the reckless endangerment, the emotional torment, the emotional harm, the psychological abuse, and then he elicited using it online. And that is where you have to get to a point where you divorce the narcissist and you divorce the narcissist enablers, because not only do narcissists recruit other people, they triangulate. They continue to do things that they know are toxic to you. They continue to go invade your privacy. They continue to toxic shame, toxic humiliate you, or go into your personal files, personal records. They have no boundaries. They don't know when to quit. They never quit. They don't quit until somebody snaps or somebody has a nervous breakdown, which I'm not going to have any of those. I'm not going to be snapping. But the thing is, at this point, there's levels and depths of where lawyers need to step in. There needs to be forced separation. There needs to be forced levels of pressing charges, and even with family members who enabled it or knew about it or were told about it and they continue to do nothing about it. And that's where you get into the scapegoat part of it, where everybody scapegoats you and blames you for meeting a complete sociopath, narcopath. Let me tell you something. Narcissistic, malignant narcissists or sociopaths are red flag, toxic narcs, or habitual, cerebral, somatic narcs. They are good at acting. They're good at acting like they're a decent soul or a decent individual when they are clearly not. Not only are they dangerous, they're deadly. They're homicidal. They're disgusting, and they will do anything to shut you up. Not only will they tamper your devices, not only will they tamper your home, not only will they tamper your vehicles, not only will they do everything to shut you up, but they will continue it until you absolutely have a nervous breakdown. Luckily for me, I'm a very strong woman, and I have reached that fed up point. If I was to have a marriage terminated, it would be on those grounds of habitual stalking, relationship dating violence, and habitual provoking, gaslighting, abusive nature, and red flag indicators that he is a homicidal maniac and nasty and completely capable of committing homicide or femicide, or levels and depths of pushing it to a point that it's either him or me. And those are the things that I have dealt with this douchebag and pals et al. And when you talk about sabotage, a narcissist, when they are covert and they will continue to do put downs or elicit other narcs by proxy to do all of their put downs for them, or verbal abuse, or hypercriticism, or extreme toxic shaming, or they will use mediums such as social media. I've gone through that for over 10 years, since 2012, of the emotional torment, the abuse, the provoking, the gaslighting, using Twitter, locking me out of my accounts, causing levels and depths of messing with my accounts. No matter what I did for business, he cost me money. He cost me economic abuse, financial, coercive control abuse. I lost 8 viable businesses because of his habitual provoking, gaslighting antics. Not only did he steal proprietary information, he used it and sold it to other people, and those people have yet to pay me my royalties for my business model that he stole. And narcissism is one of those things where narcs like to mirror everything that you're talented at and act like it's theirs. And not only has he done that, he's done this for a number of years. And not only has he elicited levels of animosity and responses that I've had, but other people want to blame me based on the chapter that they walked in on. That is where you have to look at what a narcissist does. They are nothing but seek and destroy, psychological tormentors. Just literally, if you had to put it in war terms, they are a complete enemy, a predator, and they're looking to annihilate anybody that reveals what act and farce that they've had forever a day, and the years and years of their neurotic obsession and abuse towards you. And what I found is that a toxic, malignant narc, they don't have an off switch. They don't have a kill switch. They don't have anything in them to ever have any remorse for what they've done. They don't care about abusing. They don't care about tormenting. They don't care about the emotional damage. They use kids as a pawn. And this is why I said divorce them, because they are the type of people to use children, or they will trap you with children if they can, so that you stay with them the rest of your natural born life because you have children with them. Or you can have a situation where you don't have children and they will want you to try to have children with them. Not only do they elicit those levels of narcissism and sociopathy, they'll continue to do it. They log your computers. They love to sit there and observe you. They love to elicit levels of response in you. They love to elicit the levels of animosity and upset. I've had over 5 computers that he's tampered. I've had several IP address hacks that he's done. I've had several of my phones being damaged by him, doing the actual device management, rootkit, and doing all these kind of things. Not only does he like to observe everything that I've done, not only has he continued to do this, not only has he ruined jobs for me, even online work at home jobs has he managed to do this. Not only has he elicited levels of logging my IP and messing up while I was homeless, he's done this before. He's done this so many times. He's done it across state lines. And malignant narcissists are, like I said, predators and hunters, and they continue to do it. Not only will they elicit the harm that they do, they will continue to do it. They will use your children against you. They will use them as a pawn if they don't want to pay child support. And what they will do is continue to elicit that so that you can be painted as crazy, unstable, and capable of being a parent when you are. And not only that, they will continue to do those harmful, hateful things, and they will continue to do errors and issues, and they will continue to distribute smear campaigns. They will continue to use social media, and the narcs by proxy are even worse than they are, because they will elicit levels and depths of harm and then turn around and blame you for it. And it's one of those things where it's at a point of make it make sense, because those type of people have no capability or depth of perception of their harm. And not only are they malignant harmers, they will continue to do it because they think it's funny. They get joy out of watching you squirm. They get joy out of torturing you, tormenting you. They get joy out of crossing boundaries to get joy out of terrorizing you. And really, honestly, I think the United States is actually behind on doxing. Domestic violence is important. You would think that our current president would have made it important, but it seems like Beauregard Sessions and Donald Trump decided that it was okay, that domestic violence is not that important. But the UK has been ahead of the game about this, and it amazes me that as a United States citizen, that domestic violence and domestic terrorism is normalized here, and where everywhere else in the world people are starting to realize that it is detrimental, it's harmful, it's damaging, it's life damaging, it's destructive, and it destroys families, it destroys lives, it causes levels and depths of permanent harm, emotional harm. And NPDs, which are narcissistic personality disordered, or APDs, which are antisocial personality disordered, narcopaths, sociopaths, are the type of people who have specific intent to take another person's mind and captivate it and terrorize them and do all the terroristic emotional harm that they could possibly do when you don't do what they say. It's like the term of emotional manipulation and should be reserved as a narcissistic abuse to avoid a risk of falling prey to a narcissistic exploits, and the narcs by proxy who join in their games and consider it jokes and antics. But when the person who's the target or object of the obsession or the object of fatal attraction or fatal obsession, that is not funny to that person. It's never going to be funny to that person. They'll never feel the levels of trust that they used to have. The levels of questioning their sanity in the beginning and the provoking and emotional abuse and harm. And when you go to police departments who are incapable or incompetent or not well trained to sit there and recognize this, and then if it's one of their own, you're even in more of a deeper doo-doo situation where it's one of their own doing it, or if it's a Leo's son, or if it's a vice versa, a Leo's daughter, or other things like that. Those are different scenarios that you have, what have you, that will have you questioning your sanity because you go to the help and the help looks at you like you're crazy because it's unfathomable the levels of mistrust that they put and elicit to you. And then, the levels of abandonment, the worthlessness, the doubt, and the inability for them to ever be caught because they do a lot of these things remote. They will continue to do things so that they can continue to cerebrally, somatically, and emotionally harm you, and they're doing it from afar. That's what I meant by going and logging IP addresses or tracking you down with your car and doing those things. And usually it's underneath the thing where you can actually go do a readout where you go to and from places and check your mileages. That's what they do. Or they do it underneath the car, and then everywhere you go, someone's dressed up like you or doing all these provoking, emotional, harmful games. And the thing is, it's not funny. Because anybody that would sit there and do that type of narcissism or tamper AC units or tamper your beds or tamper your home environment, your dwellings, those type of people are absolutely disgusting. They're lowlifes. They're despicable people who are homicidal. They're just very nasty. And they have no cognitive ability to even think that what they're doing is harmful, hateful, or deadly. And with that, that's why I'm pro-divorce, and that's why I'm pro-offboarding from a counter-parenting or a person who is counter-parenting every step of the way and trying to elicit levels of making you look like you're crazy, unstable, unhinged. And it's been done to me. It's been done to me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Super Chats. And he would sit there and go and tap my IP and sit there and play these type of games. And, the levels of them devaluing you by contributions to other people who find it funny to elicit the levels of upset and response that you have reasonably, and their insufferable, intolerable, habitual, abusive antics. There's no excuse for what narcissists do, or malignant narcs, or what I call somatic narcs, or cerebral narcs, or covert, overt narcs, who love to be professional victims. But the thing is, the victim is someone like me or anybody else who's had to deal with this. And I've sat in groups with people who've had these absolute experiences with them, because narcs love to ruin Mother's Day. They love to ruin any experience you have. They love to ruin Christmas. They love to ruin birthdays. They love to ruin anything that would make you happy. Narcs are very jealous-hearted. They are incapable of ever celebrating anybody else's achievements. They will find ways to ruin your school experience if you are absolutely a scholar like I was. This man sat there while I was at school, would do things to remind me that he's always around. He would sit there and have people provoke and gaslight me, and I'm always seen reacting. And not only did it ruin my experience, not only did it ruin my whole entire college experience, all 4 years, but he sat there and continued to do it. And there's nothing cute about reminding someone that you're always around. It's nothing cute about following someone around. It's nothing cute about constantly playing mind games or head games. they obsess and they continue to obsess, and then they will continue to do and make excuses for their behavior. But lo and behold, if you ever make a mistake, they will hone in on it, or have their toxic narcs by proxy or their flying monkeys abuse you by proxy and try to shame you into submission, or don't tell what he's doing, or, levels of depth, or what she's doing, especially if it's a well-connected, wealthy narc. They will recruit people to go and be on their side, whereas the victim has no one on their side. They're isolated. Then they will spin their wheels at trying to pay you back for telling on them. They will absolutely try to pay you back in the form of you losing business, finance, emotional abuse, coercive control, crossing boundaries, but you're always seen reacting. So those are things that I would tell you. Definitely divorce them. Divorce the narc. Get rid of them in any way, shape you can, as far as legally. Because if you do it yourself, you're going to end up on Snapped, or you're going to end up on First 48 dealing with that. And I don't recommend anyone have to deal with that type of person, because they are detrimental. They're not conducive to a child. They're not conducive to yourself. They're not conducive to your growth. They're not conducive to you actually offboarding from them, because they become deadly. They become homicidal. They become very sociopathic. They become very vengeful, spiteful, and revengeful. And that's what I'm dealing with as of current. So, dealing with these type of people, they will poison you. They will poison your food. They will play in your food. They will sit there and do all kind of things to you. And then they'll sit there and do it covert, so nobody sees them. And this is where there's an epic failure with law enforcement, courts, DCNF, and other people who will refuse to believe that this is happening. They refuse to believe until somebody dies. And the sad part about it, most people have died at the hands of a narc or sociopath. That's where you see, like the ID channel, where somebody's died, fatal attraction, fatal vows, where you see people who've actually ended up dead or on a level of Snapped, because they're sitting up here having to deal with somebody who is systematically trying to break them down in any way, which way, shape, or form that they possibly can, and sit there and do it remote. Sometimes they will do it covert, or sometimes they'll let you know, I'm around. You can actually feel their presence, because their predatorial nature absolutely gives you that bad vibe that they're around. And the worst part about it is they will elicit levels of slow death if they can. If they can tamper your devices, if they can tamper anything, like even your bed, your house, your home, your AC unit, they will. They'll poison you to death. They don't care. They want you eradicated. They want you dead. And that's been told me. And the worst part about it, I would say, those are grounds and perfect grounds for victim impact and for someone to divorce and be forced to leave someone alone, or absolutely imprison that person, because that person at that point is a 5250, 5150, and even a 5350 at the levels that a narc will go. But I wouldn't say a 5350, because they know exactly what they're doing. Narcs like to claim, oh, you made me do it. They are never, ever, 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 ever able to be remorseful or find a way of accountability for any of their dangerous, deadly, homicidal, nasty, sociopathic, red flag behaviors. And once you start looking at the criteria for homicide or potential homicide, you'll start realizing, dang, I could potentially die behind this person or end up in a milk carton behind this person. Because most of the time, narcs will try to play love bombing. They'll bring you back to them or to kill you. They will do it. They will sit there and act like, oh, I love this person, blah, 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 and they will actually hurt you and harm you for real. You'll end up dead behind them, and people will wonder, well, she went back. I don't know what happened. Or, and vice versa with a male, with a sociopathic, nasty female. And I had to look up what a sociopath was. I had to look up what a narc was. I had to figure out exactly what I was dealing with, because I was dealing with both sides of it. Where boy A and girl A, who's the object of his obsession, is having to deal with him. I'm girl A. Then you have girl B and, boy B and other people who get involved, narc by proxy, B and B. And then you're sitting up here like, okay, what am I supposed to do? You're like in a rock and a hard place, because you're having the narc by proxy stuff, and then you're having the flying monkeys, and then you're having the rest of the sociopath goof troop that likes to co-sign for it because they're benefiting from the narc or narcs at all. And you have to think about how deadly is that when you're dealing with that and you go to the help, and then if the help has actually got their pockets greased by a complete sociopath complicit, you're going to have a rock and a hard place. Or if you have police departments that aren't well trained for that or don't have continuing education, a lot of times they get tired of you calling, telling what's going on. They won't help you. Or you call DCNF, they won't help you. Or they'll sit there and hang up in your face. It happened to me. So then you're always seen as the problem, where the narc is sitting up there putting batteries in everybody's back, and they believe the narc because the narc can interview well. And that's another thing about narcissism and malignant narcs. They interview well. They interview exceptionally well, but the victim does not. The victim will be sitting in court and reacting, because the narc will even do things in court to cause the victim to react. They are just that good at continue to play mind games and levels of harm, intimidation, and coercive control. Or they will do it covert and before you can get to court, so you won't go to court. I've gone through it. Narcs don't care. They're deadly, they're nasty, they're homicidal, and some of them will actually get to that level of homicidal. If they actually feel like their perfect image or their whole persona or their whole act is being revealed, then you're on their hit list. You're on their target list. You're on their milk carton list that you're going to end up missing or body stinking somewhere, because that's exactly what they want. Because they don't like anybody that stands up for themselves. They need weak people. They need the type of people that are okay with being abused. They need the type of people that they can sit there and provoke and use as a puppet, or people that they can wind the batteries up in their back and they're sitting far removed from the situation, but they're causing you slow death. They're causing you slow murder. They're causing you levels of provoking or emotional harm or detrimental abuse, to where either you think it's either me or them. And that's where you have the cases of Centoya Brown. You have the cases of Betty Broderick. You have the cases of Marissa Alexander dealing with a complete sociopathic, deadly, harmful, nasty, 7-alarm, red flag narc or sociopath. And if you get two of them combined together, a narcopath, you're dealing with a very deadly, vengeful, spiteful person who will try to shut you up by any means. It could be even with bringing in bed and hot bossing you and slow boiling you to death. They will do that. They don't care. They don't care what kind of toxic harm, or they'll elicit biohazard. They will do anything they can possibly do to shut you up. And that's how deadly they are. And if they have police cronies or lawyer cronies or people in high places, they will definitely go out their way to shut you up. You can guarantee that. And the sad part about it, it's become normalized. We live in a country of greed, built on greed. But the thing is, you would think that we would have a country that's built on order like it's supposed to have been. And this is what was written in 1784, constitutional order and oath of office and things like that to protect and serve and protect. But the epic failures at certain levels of management means that the order is fine, the oath is fine, it's the managers. It's the people in leadership or the people who are supposed to be wearing the badges to protect and serve that are failing, victims. The judges that aren't well educated or you don't have lawyers who are specializing in that and able to go and open and slam dunk a case. Because the victim itself is not the problem. It's the epic levels of going to try to get the help, and the help just plays you in the face. That's the sad part about it. And there are cases of victims who have been pushed to femicide or suicide. And then you get the police department that will dox a person as suicidal just to cover up their wrongdoing or inability or ineffectiveness to go and protect you. Especially if it's one of their own, or one of their own son or daughter or something like that. Then you're dealing with a whole level of narc foolery. So it's levels and depths to all of it. And this is why I recommend divorce. This is why I recommend separation. And this is why I recommend post-separation protection orders and lifetime protective orders when you're dealing with a narc like that, because they are dangerous, they're homicidal, and they will absolutely elicit their cronies to come after you if they can. So then you have to do a whole dragnet of finding out who's all friends with who is all within the social circle, so you avoid a possibility of being lured into the lion's den with them. And that's what happens when you're dealing with a narc. They have a web of deceit, web of lies, web of betrayal, and web of deadly antics and deadly lies that can put a target on your back and you won't even know it. And this is why I wanted to educate people on why it's okay to divorce, why it's okay for an educated female to leave a man, why it's okay for a woman to just finally just say, you know what, enough is enough, I'm done. Whether or not you're educated or not. If you're a female who doesn't have an education, it's okay to still divorce. The Bible says you're supposed to have a good marriage. You're supposed to have a good relationship. It never said I stay in a relationship out of religious obligation. It never says you should stay in an abusive relationship or a detrimental, homicidal, nasty, potential red flag, deadly relationship that can elicit levels of snapped first 48 or possibility of you dying behind a narcissist or somatic, cerebral, or a complete total level of depth of homicidal, maniac, sociopath, or narcopath. And that's the sad part about it. People think that they are obligated to be with someone and they have to be painstakingly, what I call, allow the abuse or torture or Stockholm syndrome that they deserve it. You don't. He never deserved any level of bullying that's been told to me, or levels and depths of recruiting others who think that you finally bossing up and you saying, okay, I'm not going to put up with this. I don't deserve this. I want you to leave me alone, and I think you should be charged. Then they get mad because their crony has to be held responsible and accountability. And this is why I said it's okay to leave that, because nobody in their right good mind is going to stay there and continue to go through that type of level of detrimental harm. And a lot of people don't seem to understand that until it happens to them, their daughter, their granddaughter, or vice versa, their son, their grandson, or someone who's dealing with a cerebral, somatic, complete narcopath, sociopathic woman. But I'm a woman and I'm not that way. I had to look it up. And when I had to talk to doctors who said, you're not the narc. If you had to ask, you're not. And if you had to look it up, you're not. And it made me feel a lot better, because narcs love to accuse a person being a narc when they're doing all of it. That's called reverse projection. And they love to intimidate and validate, and they love to use coercive control to do that. So that is my spiel on why it's okay to divorce. It's okay to say, you know what, I've preserved my mental health and my sanity and my resiliency to move forward and recover and get away from you before you either, 1, kill me, 2, poison me to death, or absolutely murder me in cold blood and get away with it. And that's why it's okay to divorce. It's why it's okay to say, I want to separate. And it's okay to absolutely just elicit a level of going to court and get yourself some adequate protections. Because a person like that's not going to stop till you either die, or they try to bring you back and then you either still die. Because they're going to wait. They're going to wait a good while. They can wait 5 years, 10 years, 15 years to pay you back for what they feel that you exposed about them. So therefore, I don't recommend anybody, after you leave a narc, leave them alone. Don't ever go back to them, because they will hurt you and they will harm you. And if their family feels that they're justifying their behavior towards you, you can guarantee you're going to end up dead behind their family too. So I would definitely want to end this Times Up Me Too level of understanding for divorce, and why it's okay to divorce, and why it's okay to file for divorce. Or if you're not married, to absolutely backpedal and pussy pop as fast as you can away from that type of narc, because you realize what kind of danger you're in. Leave. Because it's never going to get better. They're going to get worse, or they're going to covert wait. And then they're going to target you again. They give enough time for everybody to go and say, oh, he's so fine. He's okay. He's doing her so fine. Yeah, he has every intent to harm. And that's what you have to realize. And, or if you have a female, the same thing. But when you're an empath, or you're a person who is not inclined to be a narcissist, it would take you actually having a job that requires you to do certain things like that, and immunity for you to act like that. Then that's a whole different story. But that's a whole different level. So it's a difference when you're dealing as a civilian with a narc, and a narc who has no immunity to do this and has no right to do it. And that's where you have to draw the fine line of decency. And that's where you have to toe the line and say to yourself, you know, there's levels of failure in all areas for people who allow a narc to destroy lives, and then think that they're justified in toxic shame, toxic humiliation of the person who's speaking out or speaking up for themselves or others, including minors. And then this is last but not least, I've heard about this. The worst epic failure that the courts have ever done is to allow a narc to tell lies and not do enough intel, or DCNF to not do enough intel, or levels of Leos to not do enough intel to figure out who's the actual narc, who's the actual provoker, who's the actual gaslighter, who's the actual abuser. And that is where the epic failures, and where you see the bad parent awarded the child and just to avoid custody, or the coercive control, or counter parenting, and setting up the other parent who's actually a decent parent for failure. And I've been through that. And all of that is those levels and depths of where you have to find a fine line and a silver lining in all of it. Because children eventually see it for what it is, but it harms the child. And that's the most important thing I wanted to end this on, is the children are more important than your situation. Because children who grow up seeing that become like that, or they have potential of being resilient and not. And they do everything opposite to not be like that. So it's levels to all of it, but there's no excuse for a narc to harm. There's no excuse for the harm that a narc will inflict just to shut you up, or cause you pain or suffering, and actually feel like they're justified. And then they're cronies who enable them or target you based on the fact, oh, my friend is getting in trouble because of you. No, your friend is getting in trouble because of their behavior. So there's a big difference. But again, narcs by proxy, or what I call flying monkeys, can never take accountability, and they will always find a way to blame you, not their friends. Because either they A, benefit, or B, they know that the person's like that and they just don't want to be targeted themselves, or C, they don't really like you and they really feel like you deserve it. And that's what I've dealt with as well. So it's levels to all of it, and therefore I wanted to close out the session with that, so that you guys can understand exactly what it's like to deal with them. So take care. But I definitely recommend anybody, last but not least, leave before it gets dangerous or you die. Okay? Abuse is not okay.